hope you're ready for this.
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn. Hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Needs a brew? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Trollin HGC, a Heroes of the Storm podcast focused on esports, a member of the Trolls GG podcast network. I'm your host, LiQuid, and I'm joined today by what will be my standard co-host and my founding partner of the show, Bahgz. How's it going, man?
What's going on? I'm happy to be here, man. This is electrifying, to say the least.
Right? I'm so excited. Like, I haven't been able to stop, like, doing work. Like, I had work today, and, like, all I could think about all day in work was, like, oh, my God, I can't wait to get home and, like, finish off the little bit I had left to do so we could do the show. So I'm, like, super, super excited. All right. So we're going to jump right in. We have a lot to cover today, and I want to try and keep the show at least relatively short for people that are going to listen in the car. So we are going to first say we are on Patreon. The Trolls.gg network is actually completely like the Nexus Trolls is where I got my start. Bahgz is over on Blizz Weekly. We both did prior podcasts to this, but Daz over at the Nexus Trolls was nice enough to say, you know what, you guys want to do your own show, let's do it all as Trolls.gg. So we went and we created Trolls.gg. Everybody's watching here now on twitch.tv/TrollsGG, and we said we're gonna do the same. We're gonna do a single Patreon. So if you're a Patreon supporter of the Nexus Trolls or you're a Patreon supporter of us, you will support both shows. We're doing it just once a week. We're gonna both do an episode of both shows. So head on over to patreon.com/TrollsGG. Link's actually in the upper left-hand corner there of our screen. But jumping right in to roster apocalypse, holy cow, has stuff happened. I don't even know where to start. Like, Be Genius just said, you know what, we got kicked out, we're done, we're just releasing the whole roster, we're out.
That was depressing. But I get it, and it's just the start. It's just like the tip of the iceberg, and we're not even done yet. Right?
Like, that was just it. Yeah, we still have another week. Well, no, I think it's like 4 more days. I have to double check the rules, but I think it's 4 more days where teams can make changes. But B-Step also disbanding, and because they were in HGC, now there's a spot open, and Blizzard says we're gonna put Even in Death in. Like, what? Wait, what just happened?
Wait, didn't they just lose in the Crucible? Wait, I don't.
Right?
It's wild. It's so much player movement. It's like the first day of free agency in like the NFL or something, where just like,
right,
it's hard to keep track of like who's going where, who's still available, who still has to get on a team, what teams are still in the league.
Right. It's crazy. And I'm glad you brought that up. There's a couple of links in our show notes, which will be available on the website, that show, one of them's just straight up drawings showing like arrows going between teams. It was crazy to follow. But then one of them's also a big Word document that also shows the same stuff. So 2 really cool documents will be in our show notes if you guys want to check those out. But I want to talk for a minute about Even in Death replacing B-Step, because we talked about it a little bit on the Nexus Trolls, and I think it was the right decision by Blizzard to say, you know what, you lost a team from Premier League, you had to put somebody in. Even in Death finished the Open Division playoffs as the #1 seed. Like, that was the right team in my mind. Like, you could have done a playoff and said, all right, Imported Support and Even in Death, you guys can play one more best of 7 to figure out who gets it. But Even in Death had already done that, so I feel like they, by default, deserved that spot at that point. What do you think?
I agree wholeheartedly. So the biggest, like, here, I got some notes on this. Let me flip over here.
Okay, all right.
The biggest beef on this is people say, oh, it was played at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't care. It doesn't matter if both teams played at 4 o'clock in the morning. That is a moot point. It doesn't matter if they played at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Both teams are playing at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They're both dealing with the same common denominator there.
Right.
It's when you watch teams play baseball, sometimes they play in the rain. Both teams are having to deal with the rain. It's not like it's such a, I guess it's such an esports thing, and I don't want to like go at the fans like this, but it's like such an esports thing to be like, well, the conditions weren't perfect. I'm like, all right, well, you can take your glasses off now. Like, come on.
Right.
Like, there are factors involved. They both teams had to deal with them. They're both East Coast teams. It wasn't like one was a West Coast team and it was 1 a.m. and it was 4 o'clock for the East. They're both East Coast teams. The only thing that the argument that I saw that kind of holds weight here is that, yes, they didn't know necessarily what they were playing for because they didn't know that B-Step was going to disband and that they were playing for more than just who they get to pick to play. But
like,
go ahead.
Well, no, like, so what? Like,
I
it's
agree,
the final,
I agree.
man. Whether it's I want the number 1 seed to pick my team or I just want to come out on top, it's the freaking final. Who cares? Play like everything matters. Like, your entire HGC career could have come down to which team you got to play, right? So at that point, you should be playing as hard as you can. And I want to comment on something else you said. Who cares if it's East Coast versus West Coast? You know what? That shit's gonna happen in HGC. You think they might not have a game that's not perfectly timed for your West Coast brain to wake up to or your East Coast brain to wake up to? Dude, no. Like, the schedule, unless you're playing every event on a LAN, that's never gonna be the case, right? And
it's
even
your
then,
job. You have to plan your schedule around it. Agree, 100%.
Right. Yeah. So no, I think Even in Death deserved this placement. I'm happy. I think what Duke Solo said in chat is correct. Even in Death, the games will be considered an exhibition for Phase 2. Yeah, that's probably true. As Even in Death goes through Phase 2, I think they'll get better and better. But I think the Premier League teams will have less to learn from them, and Even in Death will just really, like it's a stepping stone for Even in Death, so that at the end of Phase 2, they will be that much stronger.
I agree. They're going to get better as the season goes on. They're going to progress. At the end of this, we'll see how the free agency period pans out here, but we're going to have better free agents in the open division, so we're going to have better teams in the open division. I think this is working as intended. Some people on Twitter suggested, like, why don't we just throw a quick tourney together and we'll have a free agent team and the other? No, that's sloppy. It's unprofessional. What they did was the correct move. I'm looking forward to see how Even in Death can get the job done in HGC. Will they be the number 8 team going into this next season? I don't know, but we'll see. They do have. I mean, they got a couple of former players. There's batteries on the team. Frozen X, all from what were they? Astral Authority.
Astral Authority. Yep.
Yeah. So.
All right. So moving on. GFE has added K1 Pro and King Caffeine to the roster. I think surprising nobody. This is, like I tweeted to you earlier today, this was the most not surprising announcement I think we've had to date in Roster Apocalypse. Like, as soon as Crowan and Equinox were gone, everybody's like, all right, or at least I was. I certainly know other people echoed this. In fact, Bakery that morning said, I know nothing of the rumor that K1 Pro and King Caffeine are going to GFE. And surprise, surprise, 1 week later, here we are, K1 Pro and King Caffeine going to GFE. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. You know, only time will tell with that one.
I've got some thoughts on that.
Yeah,
we can. You want to dive into that now? You want to save them for later?
Well, let's save that for later because I know we're going to go in depth on GFE's lineup and what they're doing and Aventic's position swap. So we'll just hit the highlights right now. All right,
do that.
So Superstars dropped Goku. Nobody was really surprised by that. I think looking at how Superstars performed, they were looking to make a change. It will be interesting to see who they pick up there. Maybe they plan on getting Shot because Shot has said repeatedly he will see people in HGC in Phase 2. Somebody somewhere is picking him up, whether it's Superstars or someone else. We'll have to see. Tricked Esports dropped Eternal, but then Eternal went and joined a team in the Bloodlust last night, right? I think Eternal was on that team.
He wasn't on the winning team, so I didn't catch what team he was on.
All right, maybe not. Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe he didn't join one of those either. So like here's something we talked about in the Nexus Trolls. There's just so much movement. It's hard to keep track of everything, right?
Yeah. Yes.
No Tomorrow dropping Airho. I know Airho was on that team because I'm looking down there right now.
Yep. There's quite a few familiar names on the team that won the first Bloodlust Open last night.
And it'll be interesting to see where they go further, like if they're gonna try and hit other events too. Here's one that everybody expected but was announced. Team Expert dropped Blade and added Athero Angel. They basically have been trying out Athero for like weeks. and just saying, yeah, Blade,
It's-
dude, your position's on the line.
Almost 2 months now. It feels like with
Right.
Aethero subbed in for a couple of games, Blade, and then obviously they had to stick with Blade due to the rules. They played an entire tournament, I think, during the off time during the clash with Aethero. So I think it was King of Storms.
Yep.
So the EU version of the old Kings of Storms that happened in NA here. So that was expected, and Aethero looked good when he did play. I caught a couple matches where he was on Zeratul, and he just made plays that made your eyes pop out of your head. So he's come a long way, at least according to a couple of the guys from Dig. So
And it was
we'll see.
like night and day difference with Team Expert, like when they were playing with Aethero versus when they were playing with Blade. I don't know how much that was how well Blade was playing versus just how well the team meshed, right? Because at that level, the team mesh is so important.
There's a lot of factors in there. There's the tangible things like overextending and dying that you'll see from certain players, and then there's the intangible things where like getting along with the team, just being in sync with like decisions that the team wants to make, being on the same page that you don't really see just watching the video. You just hear about it.
Right.
So.
Right. And then here's another big one, and we'll talk a little bit more about this one later on. Naventic moving Kenma out of the support position and into coach, and then adding iDream to the team. Now we knew iDream was going to land somewhere because B-Step went away, right? Kenma moving to coach is interesting, and we're definitely going to talk about that more later because that's like, wow. We'll see. We'll see.
I don't know if you caught the interview after the Crucible match, but he kind of like they didn't ask and he didn't say, but it was like heavily alluded. The way he was wording things was like,
right.
I really hope that Zuna gets a solid team behind him next in the next phase. And I'm like, but the way like he's saying it like past tense, like he's not going to be there. So
right.
we'll see.
Well, and this is his not going to be there right now. He's coaching
Yep.
instead. So
Correct.
Also last week, like really, really not noticed by a lot of people, but Insomnia said on his stream he was no longer going to be with Team Freedom, and not a whole lot of people picked that up. But then Team Freedom picked up Cure this week. Cure from the Heroes of the Dorm team for oh my god, why am I going blank?
UTA.
Yes,
yeah.
thank you.
He's been the #1 Grandmaster for the past 3 Hero League seasons. So the inaugural 3 Hero League seasons of Heroes. He's known as like a really mechanically strong player. Now, if you pull up his Master League profile, he played a ton of Vala in the Open Division for UTA when they were competing. He's going to be their melee flex. That's what Insomnia did. He's going to play. He's going to be their gray main. He's going to be their Ragnaros. Rip. You get the idea. Anyways,
right.
That's what he's going to do. That's what Insomnia did. It's kind of depressing. Like, so if you scroll through the history of Team Freedom's Twitter, not once did they mention that they let go of Insomnia. Just at some point, I think it was like May 24th last week, Insomnia said that he was looking for a new team. So I was a little disappointed by that they didn't even mention that they got rid of the guy, and then they're like, hey,
here's Cure.
we sound Cure. And Cure has been like, he was like when the LeBron sweepstakes happened in like 2011, and everyone was trying to figure out like, where's LeBron going? This is what Cure was for like the Heroes scene just now. Every time there was an opening on a team, they're like, Cure's going there. That's the team he's going to be on. He's going to play tank for Naventic. He's going to be the healer for, it was just,
right. It was weird.
It was wild.
Like,
so
yeah,
big curveball that ended up on Team Freedom, which is kind of like a middle of the road team. People were expecting him to end up on a bigger name team. I'm excited to see what happens.
This is a good spot for Cure, I think. This is a place where he can come in and make an impact, where on one of the bigger known teams, like it would have been harder for him to make an impact if he went to like Team 8 or like GFE, right? Like the amount of impact I think he could have had would have been smaller than on a Team Freedom. I do agree with you though. I feel like the way Team Freedom handled the Insomnia split was like they did him dirty in a bad, like, I mean, I could not believe how
the worst part about that is like the like pulls on the heartstrings is like, this is the guy, like they interviewed him after they just beat Superstars.
Yeah.
And this is the guy who's like the dad, they had the viral dad video in the background where he's like screaming in the background. Like, I'm just like, really?
Like, that's the guy you cut? And he was a solid player. It wasn't like he was a bad player. And it was just like even the way, like if you watch his Twitch stream where he says it, he's like, yeah, the team apparently just voted me out and I didn't even know it was happening. And it's like, dude, like really? Like that is one of the problems I have with esports right now is like some of the especially the smaller teams, right? Like, don't do the shady stuff.
That's what just happened to Urho too.
Right, same thing. And it's just like, get out of that. Like, this is your job. This is real now. This is no longer, hey, we're just playing a game. I don't know. It's just weird. It's the same as when GFE got rid of oh my God, why am I going blank? The Tempo Storms to Fury. Like, it's the same thing. Like, Fury's like, wait, what? None of this happened. Like, what? All right, whatever. And he moved on and he went on to better things. I'm hoping we can see Airho and Insomnia move on to better things and just be like, put it behind you guys, move on, because you guys were not treated the way you should have been treated when you left the team. I know Tomorrow did it a little bit better, but not much, and just move on, right? So yeah.
So, and it just, I'm disappointed because I'm a big Team Freedom fan, just because, like, eSports.us, like, when the HGC started, I was like, all right, so I know all the players, but I don't really have a favorite team. I kind of follow them around. I'm like, so I need to latch onto a team. So I did a little research. eSports.us, a portion of the winnings that they earn throughout the year goes to charity.
Right.
So I was like, well, that's something I can get behind. So right. I kind of latched onto the team, and I was really hyped when they did really well in the playoffs. They beat B-Step and Superstars. Obviously, they didn't beat Team 8, but they still did well for a team that just kind of like came out of nowhere too. It was another team that was expected to be bottom tier as far as the NAHGC went, and it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth when stuff like that happens on a team that's
they're the
sponsored by an org.
Right,
yeah.
They're the top 8 in North America. They should know better, right? Like that's just how I look at it. You don't see that kind of stuff in Europe. You don't see that kind of stuff in Korea, and and we'll talk more about all the regions all together, but like that's part of what's holding us back is that kind of thing. So but on to some good news. Team 8, who Glaurung has made a believer out of me, especially after watching what they did with Dyrus. Like, dude, what? Like, really? They're now Roll20 Esports, sponsored by Roll20, totally embracing that, and that's awesome. That's great news for those guys.
I'm pumped that they finally have an org. They have some financial backing. They really took their time and picked an org that they wanted, I'm assuming. I'm not gonna lie, I was completely caught off guard by them being picked up by Roll20 Esports. I didn't expect a D&D org coming in for their first esports venture ever to pick up Team 8.
Right.
But listen, I can get behind it. The owners got in on Reddit, on Twitter. They were all about it, so I'm down.
No, it's great, and they're all in now, right? Like, that's the crazy thing. They're like, we're doing this, and this is the group we're doing it with, and we're like 100% behind them, which is crazy, but awesome. Crazy in a great way. So
yep.
All right, so let's jump into some results from the Crucible. You picked up a couple of videos that we're gonna watch. I'm not gonna start this one yet because this is the second game. First game that happened, we're gonna go regionally first. Korean Crucible. We did have Team Raven taking on Cluster UBC, and Team Raven kept their spot with a 4-1 victory over Cluster UBC. And then up here on the screen, you picked out a clip for Blossom versus RRR.
So what happened here was just an insane wombo combo that kind of caught me off guard. Initially, the teams were disengaging, and then the ETC kind of came in, landed the sweet mosh pit, and that was followed up with a Shank so it wouldn't get interrupted, which was followed up by the Twilight Dream, which just the RRR was just instantly deleted. Essentially, I think they had one character left after the wombo. It was sweet.
It was pretty impressive, and it enabled Blossom to go on to win that series 4-0. So
correct.
That was pretty impressive. All right, so let's just go over here, jumping into some YouTube. So we got a play here. This is game 3 of Zealots versus Synergy. I'm gonna let this one roll for a little bit, but
I picked this one out ahead a little bit here, but basically they had a nice back and forth going on here, and then Zealots completely turned it around. So you see Synergy dropping the sweet Sank here, and then it looked good for Synergy at first, and then the Zealots just kind of absolutely devoured them. I guess is the best way to describe it.
No, that's a great way to describe it.
So, and then from here on out, it takes a little while, but so we can skip on ahead to the next video. But basically, that defining team fight right there was what ultimately won this map for Zealots. They were able to snowball from this. I believe they got the boss, they got the Zerg wave, they got every other camp, and just stomped.
This game here was by far my favorite ending to a game. But you picked this specific clip to start from, so I'll let you go ahead and cover it. But this game was, like, if you're going to only watch one Crucible game, watch Game 5, Zealots versus Synergy.
So, Zealots needed this to win. Synergy needed this to live to the next map, to not get knocked out of the HGC. And this was like a long, like almost 2-minute long, drawn-out team fight of just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The towers come up here shortly, and Synergy kind of just does everything they can to survive. They don't, spoiler alert, but it's just.
So I'm gonna jump ahead, right? I'm gonna try and find the right spot. This is the end. You can see it's 3 shots to 4 shots. This is it. Like, one way or the other, this game is ending, and we're just. I'm gonna let it roll through because this was like one long team fight. Actually, I'm gonna skip 30 seconds ahead just a little bit here. This was the craziest ending. I got up and this is the first. All right, so I'm gonna spoiler everybody. Zealots ends up winning, but the way they win was impressive. And you can see stuff going on right now as they're going. You can you can't. I forgot they cut away, but what you missed was Zeratul went and killed the Abathur that was channeling that altar, went and captured the altar and won the game for Zealots there. But this was the first EU team to get through the Crucible, and the first team to get through the Crucible, right? And I was standing up from the couch screaming at my TV, oh my god, they're through, oh my god, a team just won. Like, I was dancing, I was so excited because an Open Division team took out a Premier League team and earned a place in HGC, and that to me, that was like the culmination of what HGC was meant to be this year, you know?
So this was exactly how it was supposed to work, right? So this was a team was supposed to go in the Open Division, have aspirations to make it to the Pro League, compete, put the work together, and achieve that goal.
Right.
This, with the problem, I mean, we'll talk about it when we get later into the discussion topics, but the anticlimactic part about it is Team Zealots is full of like former members of like Team LiQuiD and but. So like that goes unsaid, but the ending, the way this ended, on like such a it was such a nail biter because literally Synergy, all in. There was 2 towers, there was 2 altars up. Only one needed to be captured by Team Zealots for them to lose. So they all end on the altar that favored Zealot side,
right? And
the Abathur had to tunnel in and be like sneaky and try and get it. And just props to Team Zealots for having the composure to realize that, hey, they're all inning on us. The only way they can get the altar on the other side is if Abathur gets it right now. Right. So the Zeratul had the mindset to the peace of mind, the clarity in that really pressure-packed moment to walk over there, find him, wipe him out. The camera didn't catch it, but they talked about it right after.
Right.
Robbie went on for like 5 minutes about how genius that was to have that that mental fortitude at that moment, and then come back. They were then up, 5-4, take down those guys, and that was it.
Well, and like you said, can you really expect less from Shad? Shad was on Team Shad was the Vikings player on Team LiQuiD for a long time. Like, this dude knows the game, right? So really, we shouldn't expect less from him. But they came through Open Division to get their chance, and they capitalized on it, and it was huge. All right, so obviously Synergy lost to Team Zealot 4-1. We're gonna go ahead and jump over to Be Genius versus Team Gang Gang. My personal favorite team. I love that we now have my boy BKB back in HGC. But here's the play you picked for from Game 2 between those two teams.
Oh my God! So this was like a total butt clencher moment because right at this moment, not yet. My casting skills suck. All right, so right in about this moment, BKB is going to get absolutely deleted, but he doesn't.
Right.
He doesn't. I don't know how he walks away at the last second there. I guess what happened was there was the Hexy 3 or whatever. The Gold Dan got a Horrify in at the last second, and it was just incredible. It got enough aggro off BKB that they could land the Ancestral in time, and there's no doubt about it. Like, we're all BKB fans. He's a fan favorite, no doubt. But he was out of place. He was a little too far forward from his team. His team wasn't quite there yet, ready to make that engage. It was a miracle he somehow survived.
And then they won the game.
Correct. Right after that, they turned it around from that, and they were able to take the victory on that game. They ended up going 4-0, and it's just...
Which in and of itself is crazy. But then you picked another thing from Game 4. So this is the game where they secure the win, because they definitely went 4-0 and had probably... Now, look. Much like Team Zealot, this is also a team of past professional players, including BKB, who used to be on Team LiQuiuD as well. And that's one of the reasons I'm such a favorite of his, is because I feel like he really should have still been on a pro team, and like him getting removed, I feel like wasn't handled. It was not handled as badly as like what we saw with Insomnia. But yeah, I don't feel like he was the problem with the team when he was removed, but you know, clearly I'm not a professional coach. I wish I was. It would be a lot of fun for me, but but here we go, jumping into Game 4.
There we go.
Yeah, I think this was just them pushing in, I think was what we saw here. There was something I tried to figure out what you liked in this video.
So in this part, Antihero, who's playing Stitches here, lands several devastating hooks here.
I know this one now. All right.
So, and then the team comes to try and save him. It's like typical Hero League stuff, right? So the trio comes to try and like pull the aggro off the Arthas, who's getting caught out, gets full distance hooked, and then a follow-up hook on the Uther, who comes in to try and save the Tyrael. It's just like...
Everything that could go wrong there went wrong, including the cocoon onto the Arthas to finish it off. 3-man wipe, and then they won from here.
Correct. And this is how they enter HGC off this. So Antihero lands 2 bang hooks right after they catch the Arthas out, who they never caught on a hook, by the way. It was just they went to go get him. The other 2 teammates came to try and save him, and one by one they kind of filter in like lemons to the sea. And GG, BKB's back in HGC. It was yeah. So I was blown away by this, because when we're Team Good Guys, as they're called now, but Team Gang, when they picked B Genius, I was like, well, that's the hotter team. That's the team that's been playing better. They made the role swap. They've been doing really well. They beat Playing Ducks. They beat Tricked. They took LiQuiuD to like 5 or something like that.
Yeah, they were on the upswing, right? All of a sudden they were coming back, and then boom.
So I was trying to wrap my brain. I'm like, why would they pick them? The synergy has been an absolute mess lately. And clearly they had their reasons, and they went 4-0 against them. They looked really good. And what blows my mind about Team Ganging is like Team Zealots has been playing since the start of Open Division. These guys kind of just like threw a team together, and like you listen to BKB's interview at the end. They're like, yeah, we couldn't really get the scrim at all this week. Bad luck, and I got locked out of my house one night when we were trying to scrim, and just things haven't really worked out. And but you know, we have fun playing together. I'm like, wow, this is like
right.
like yeah, we just kind of like threw a HOTS team together, and here we are. We're in HGC, just like that.
What was interesting to me is they played under a different name, 2 Open Division tournaments before that, and it wasn't
in the very
quite
beginning, right?
Yeah. It didn't quite fit, and so they replaced 1 or 2 players. I'd have to go out to Master League to check, because I don't remember exactly who it was they replaced, and then everything clicked for them. They won that tournament, which put them high enough, because what happened in Open Division, and DB Smiley tweeted about this, and I actually happen to agree with him. They won the last cup in Open Division, which brought them high enough to qualify in top 16 to make it into the playoffs, so that they could then secure a place and actually get the #1 seed. DB Smiley's point, and the thing that I agree with him on, points need to count for something in Open Division. So if you look at the way it worked in HGC, right, you had that stepladder playoff, which made sense, because I was like, hey, the better you do in the regular season, the better your positioning is when it comes to stepladder playoff time, right? There was no kind of system for that in Open Division. So you have Team Gang Gang coming in and like stomping their way through the playoffs after having only won one cup, but that's all they needed to qualify for the top 16. So I think Blizzard needs to look at that, if not in phase 2, at least in 2018 season, and figure out like how they're going to handle that, because I feel like points need to mean more in open division. Yeah.
So I've spoke to Guaz about this, and we both agree, like 16 teams, it's a nice fleshed out tournament, but it's like, it feels like, hey, I made an open team, I went to one tournament and I'm in, you know?
Yes.
It's so my solution, and I'm not a tournament organizer, I have no background in any of this, I will throw that out there right now, but what seems obvious to me is only let 8 teams in.
Right.
You cut that in half, and all of a sudden it's a lot more competitive. To
right.
You know, you're not gonna have a 16-way tie like we did for
NA
with 4 teams with
right.
like 20 points. You know,
right.
You get 8 teams. It's a lot more competitive. It forces the teams to. It makes it a lot more devastating for teams that show up for 2 cups, break up, come back, and make
right.
another team and still
right.
qualify, which just happened to Team Gang. And maybe they'd be on the outside looking in this situation. I don't think so though, because winning a cup generates a ton of points.
Right.
But I think that would make it more competitive. It would make the open division, the 7 cups, just more interesting to watch. Where when you start getting later into the season, you had the last one where the teams were just kind of doing whatever in the very last one.
Right.
You know, we saw Nova played in one of the matches.
And some teams didn't even show up to the last one because they're like, whatever, we're secure, we're in the playoffs, who cares, right?
Right.
So like, yeah, something needs to be done, and I agree. Making it top 8 is another good solution to that. So. All right, but jumping into NA, so I just picked 2 games out of both series just to have up while we talk through this.
Yeah.
Just to show, I like Towers of Doom. It's one of my favorite maps to cast. It's one of my favorite maps to watch teams play on, specifically because you can get a situation like we got in EU with Synergy Team Zelt, where it comes down to that last tower shot, right? Naventic was able to secure 4-2 over imported support. Between the 2 teams. And I don't know how much of this was Naventic looking bad versus No Tomorrow looking better, but imported support definitely looked like they were closer to belonging than Even in Death, especially in this series. But like I said, I don't know how much of that was Naventic in just being Naventic versus imported support being better, right?
Right. Based on what the opponent they were playing right. and how strong they were.
Right.
What I loved about this series was just both teams are very aggressive. The casters commentated on it several times. So what you got from this was like the Heroes Brawler that Blizzard originally
right.
advertised.
It was like nonstop team fighting, which was awesome to watch. But at the same time, you're like, hey guys, like objectives matter. Like,
there are other things going on.
Soak to 10? I mean, come on, man. Like, really? But they were. Both teams were constantly duking it out, which made for good watching, right? The viewing experience for a Team Naventic versus imported support, had it gone 4-3, would have been just that much better. But even 4-2, we saw like a ton of maps played. So,
I mean, a lot of people joke on Reddit like that the NA teams got stomped, and I don't think like 4-2 is still, even though it didn't go the full 7, is still a relatively competitive series. And you could make the argument that imported support in game 1, they got absolutely crushed, and they didn't play their game. And I don't know if maybe they were just nervous. There was nerves in that very first game. So
it had to almost be, right? Like they did not. I've cast imported support before in open division. That's not how they look when they normally play. So I was watching that going, God, this is not normal. Like something's either they're off or nerves, like you said, or something was off, and they started to turn it around. When they started playing their game, I felt like they tried to almost adjust too much to Naventic instead of just playing their style.
So I was a little disappointed we didn't get to see Cho'Gall after seeing it in the Open Division playoffs.
Right.
But we did get actually we glossed over it. We did actually get to see the Zealots pop that out in one of their.
But I was expecting that from imported support, and we didn't get it.
It was disappointing.
Yeah.
But
all right, and then last game we're gonna go over results for this week. Jumping over to No Tomorrow versus Even in Death on Sky Temple. Even in Death down 3-0 at this point. They need to win a map, and they chose to go to Sky Temple, if I remember correctly. And they ended up winning this one because they ended up losing the series 4-1. No Tomorrow actually looked better in this Crucible series than they've looked all HGC season. And, you know, it was crazy.
It was like a different team, right?
Right.
And then it was they looked really strong. And then on the final game when they popped out Lost Vikings for Towers of Doom,
right.
I know we have Sky Temple up right now, but they just was like, there was like blood in the water. They were sharks. They were just they went crazy. I couldn't believe it. They just the Vikings soaked, and they're just a 4-man. It was like 3 minutes in.
That was crazy. They were just getting kills like left, right, and center with that.
I think it was like 2 or 3 minutes in. They had a fort down. It was it was incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know if even in death just rolled over and died or what happened.
It was less than that. They're a minute 15 in right now, and there's already a blue fort bottom right hand corner. So it was so fast. It was crazy. And the killer is, and then they released Arrow a week later. Like, really?
I couldn't believe it when I found out that happened. I was like, you guys were playing better. You looked better. I mean, why don't you just keep a good thing going? See how it works out in the second phase. You just maybe you had to work out the kinks in the first phase. Anyways, I was disappointed in even in death. I thought they would have played better. I thought they would have shown more life when they kind of came back, and when they won Game 4. I didn't expect this to be the result in Game 5, where No Tomorrow just absolutely stomped.
Well, they said, you know what, we're gonna show you how Vikings is meant to be played on this map, and then they like just went to town. Like, you got 2 Vikings capturing two altars right there. Like, that's classic Vikings on Towers of Doom. Like, they played it perfectly, and then they cut Arrow. So. But go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you can see it here. I mean, they paint the map blue. They have the enemy's merc camp. They have the mid merc camp. They haven't grabbed theirs, but they easily could. They have a fort down bottom. Throughout this map, they just rotated. Now they're gonna take the top tower. It's just that was the Mona Lisa of Towers of Doom right there. And I wish we could have seen it more in the HGC season and not when playing it even in death in the Crucible.
Right. So all right. So. All that said and done, we did see only EU teams make it in through the Crucible. NA and Korean teams both, or all 4, successfully defended their HGC Premier League spots. And, you know, a couple of the takeaways, I think, I was talking about this on the Nexus Trolls, and you actually have the stats for me, which thank you for grabbing those, by the way. Anubarak, 100% pick ban rate, and Malf, 100% pick ban rate. Like, dude, if those aren't the 2 #1 heroes right now, I mean, Anub just got a slight nerf. Maybe it's enough, maybe not. We'll see what happens, you know, starting next week in mid-season brawl. But, jeez.
So, Malf still didn't get touched. I can't wrap my brain around that. I don't know. I guess he's been the same forever now. They gave him what, a slight nerf a couple patches ago, but
right.
He's the king. Like he was split in time with Lucio. I thought we were in a good spot there when at least it wasn't just Malf every game. It was Malf or Lucio. But then they nerfed Lucio, so now Malf's still king.
No, it's just Malf, right? But no, they buffed Tassadar, so maybe we won't see Malf be king anymore. Maybe it'll be Tass somebody else now, right? Because mid-season brawl will be played on the patch that was released today. And we're gonna jump right into preview because we're there anyway, right? Mid-season brawl is going to be played on the patch today where they buffed Tassadar. So we'll see Tass and a second healer. Like I personally would love to see Tass and Karazim, right? A more damage-oriented healer. Or even Ariel, right? Because Ariel synergizes well with Vala, who's a great Tass shielder too, right? So could you imagine if you have Ariel, Tass, Vala, like the Holy Trinity is back? Like, you're not going to kill that Vala, and she's just going to do a ton of damage and wreck you. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in mid-season brawl. We have links to both in the show notes. We're not going to go too in-depth because I think next week we should actually have the pairings and be able to like really dive deep into who's
right.
Who
we've got a week off this weekend before it actually gets started, so we have some time to juice that up.
But I do want to talk about Arcaner having to say, you know what, I'm going to drop out of university. Arcaner's from Australia, has to drop out of university to participate in the mid-season brawl. Like that, first of all, it sucks that he has to make that decision. But second of all, kudos for him for like chasing his dream.
So I'm a big believer in so he has this opportunity. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yes, he's going to get kicked out of school for not taking his finals and he had to drop out or whatever. But there's always that opportunity to go back. A lot of people don't see it that way, I suppose. But in my opinion, he has an opportunity here where he will not have this opportunity later down the line to go play an international event with his team, to try and make this a thing. And I fully support this decision. I think it's a great idea. He's not the first person to have done it. When he posted the tweet longer on Twitter, several of the pros from the EU region posted the same thing. They said, "Hey, made the same decision. I'm very happy that I made this decision." And it sucks that the school would put him in this position.
Right.
I think what he was just looking for, like, an extension on the exam. Like, hey, I have this international event for this thing I do on the side. It's very important to me. Can I just take your test next week?
Just give me a week. Like, all I'm looking for is a week. It wasn't even that long. It was like, I think it was 9 days or something like that. It was like, yeah.
It's stupid. That's the best way to describe it. It's just stupid. Ultimately, I mean, so he was forced with he had the ultimatum put in front of him. I think he made the right choice. I think he's gonna pick your dream. Pick your dream, people. Always, when you can.
Dude, that's why I'm doing 3 podcasts and cast all the time, right? Like, this is what I want to do. I want to be involved in esports. I know I'm not going to be able to play. I tell my wife, if I was independently wealthy, I would have a team playing Heroes of the Storm right now. I don't, so I can't, but you got to chase that dream how you can, right? And he's obviously in a better situation where he can say, you know what, if I have to miss school, I have to miss school. This is what I want to do, and I can get paid for doing this. So, yeah. So, amateur scene. Oh my God, there's so much going on right now.
There is. Bloodlust started last night.
Yep.
So, and we had an interesting team sign up yesterday. Urho, recently cut from No Tomorrow. Arthalon, formerly of Tempo Storm, Cloud9, Bob Ross fan club. Been retired about a year now.
Yep.
Making his way back into the scene. Insomnia, recently cut from Team Freedom. BBJ of Looking for More Esports. And Picante, who is the number 6 Grandmaster on the ladder. I'm not very familiar with him beyond that.
He has played in a number of smaller teams. In fact, he played for the new guys for a very short period of time as well. He has been around. He hasn't found his team yet, is I think how I would describe that.
I think all 5 of them treated this as like kind of like a tryout. Not like, I don't want to jump to the knee-jerk conclusion. We're like, hey, they're making a new team. They're going to be in the open division. Right. They're going to try and qualify for the HGC. I think these 5 literally were like, let's go showcase our talent on stream for people to watch, show them what we got. And they did so. And as a 5-man, they absolutely wrecked last night. They didn't drop a single match. Even in the grand finals last night against, I think it was Firm Handshake. Yes, yep. Firm Handshake. They absolutely dominated. I think it was the very first map. It was Battlefield of Eternity. It was like quick match stuff. It was like, we're going to no, I'm serious. They were up like almost 3 or 4 levels. They took the keep. And when they could have backed to like, go get camps or do the objective, they were just like, we'll just stay here. And they got a couple of picks and they rotated down, took the bottom keep, and then they just took the core just because they could. The other team couldn't stop them. It was an incredibly dominant performance.
It'll be interesting to see if they join any other amateur stuff, right? Because they didn't. So Heroes Hype, the amateur series, is back starting tonight with week 77. They just started. I checked. They're not signed up for that. I checked Artisans League. They're not signed up for that. Open Division signups aren't open right now for Phase 2. So, like, I tried to check anywhere else to see if they'd signed up for any other amateur tournaments, and they're not signed up anywhere else. So it'll be interesting to see if they come back. Obviously, they don't have to play any more Bloodlust because they've already qualified, and they don't have to do anything till July 15th, where the season finale or season finals happen. So,
I will say that Urho did mention, or I believe Urho mentioned, that he and Arthalon, if they do not get picked up by an HGC team for the next phase, they will be starting an open division team together. Okay. Guess they're friendly like that. I do not know who the other 3 members will be, but they did throw that out there. And then I just wanted to pull up the bracket real quick. I thought I saw. It did not happen then. I thought I saw one of the Latin American teams signed up for Bloodlust at some point. It was like the Steamrollers or something like that.
Huh.
They hold on one second.
Oh my god, I almost wore that shirt tonight. Ah, I love that shirt. All right, sorry.
eSports, yeah. Sorry about that. My watch went off, so I had to go
All good.
turn that off so it didn't ring for 5 minutes in the background.
So
anyways,
the Latin American teams, it's interesting. So that's one of the regions I want to try and make sure we cover more next week. There are a ton of amateur tournaments that happen there as well. But sometimes they cross over into NA tournaments. Then they I don't want to like put Latin America in one bucket, but they tend to not perform as they get closer to the finals, only because their ping is so high playing on NA servers.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more difficult. When you're playing a team with sub 100 ping to a team that's like going to be in the 200 to 300 range.
Right. It's definitely
literally
offensive.
playing from a continent away.
Right.
So.
Also, so the only other thing I think we need to cover amateur-wise is Chair League is going through a ton of changes in NA. So the new season hasn't been announced yet, but it is coming soon. Super Jova is reworking all the rules and changing it into multiple leagues so that you have kind of a little more pick how you want to play type thing. So.
Sorry. Not to double back, but
Nope, go ahead.
Firm Handshake, the team that lost to Rob Boss Canflub, in their first round match beat Steamrollers Encore, which is a Spanish-speaking team from LATAM. They were in the semifinals for the Copa America.
Okay, there you go.
2 weeks ago.
Awesome.
So.
It's still good to see Latin American teams trying to break into NA, which actually brings us right into our first discussion topic, which is the plight of minor region teams. Jay Street wrote this up. I think this was probably the best post I've read to date about the struggle that minor region teams have. We're talking Southeast Asia, Taiwan, ANZ, which is Australia and New Zealand, and Latin America, where it's a struggle for them to actually get play time against good teams, qualify for tournaments, and even like have scrim partners and, you know, have like a paycheck they can live off of, because only the big four regions get that guaranteed money. The other regions don't have that. It's in the show notes, but I know I read it, and it's one of the things that like I really cared about. I don't know that I can change anything about it, but like it's important that people understand. Like, yeah, we all like watching NA and EU and Korea and China, right? But there's other regions out there that aren't covered. And I even mentioned this to you, that the Heroes Esports Twitter always seems to forget that Korea happened like 6 hours before it starts tweeting, hey, the first match of the Crucible is starting. It's like, no, the first match of the Crucible was 6 hours ago in Korea. You're match number 2. Like, come on. Like, can you guys at least acknowledge, Blizzard, at least acknowledge other regions on your Twitter, and let's do something for the minor region teams. It doesn't have to be the same thing, but can't we do something for them at least? Like, come on. Or at least open NA up to them and make it a little more accessible, right? Like, that was his post.
So that's the crux of his argument is basically he understands that the reason why the other regions are weaker is because they don't really have the infrastructure there. Orgs don't want to go there because their money's not there. The money doesn't want to go there because the orgs aren't there. The viewership's not there. So it's one of those things that unless the game explodes, and it'll get there in a couple of years, or it's one of those things that it's probably not going to happen if the game doesn't explode, and it's just going to take too long, and the player base there will die off.
Right.
So to avoid that, he and his teammates, what they want to do and what they tried to do is they move to NA, come to NA, become an NA org, like so they're based out of Brazil, and join the HGC that way. And the whole drama with what happened, he put a big post on Reddit, I don't know, 4 months ago now, and just saying that Blizzard offered them the opportunity to do that, and then they reneged on it. And basically the ruling is right now is if you have to live in North America for 6 months before you can make a team and compete in open division,
right? And
then that's another 6 months competing in open divisions. You know, you got to compete in 7 open cups and then qualify through the playoffs and the Crucible to qualify in. His argument is the minor regions like South America, ANZ, Southeast Asia, forego the 6 month period where you have to live in America, but you can't compete yet, and just let them compete in open division and qualify that way.
Right. And he makes a good point, right? It's not like a European team is moving to NA to compete against NA teams. Sure, you can structure the rules that specifically say that. If you're an EU team and you move to NA, you have to wait the 6 months. Fine. But the minor region teams, open it up. Let Taiwan move into Korea and play in Korea if they want, but let them do it immediately. The same is true for Southeast Asia, and ANZ is a little harder to accommodate, but they still have options if you open that up, and Blizzard hasn't yet. And it's a problem, right?
So I agree. The biggest reason why they do it is because they had this issue. So in StarCraft 2, and it killed the game, is they let Korean players come from Korea who weren't good enough to be like top tier Korean players in Korea come to NA and dominate in NA.
Right.
And you ended up just seeing like it almost comes off as racist, but like you want to see like your peers playing against each other.
Right.
And so they're trying to avoid that. They don't want European teams or Korean teams coming over to NA and dominating NA. And League, I think they limit it to you're allowed to have two foreign players on the team. In this instance, I think Jay Shred's got a point. You're not going to have that with South America and ANZ. The player base is just so much smaller,
right?
And less. I don't want to say less talented, but smaller.
And they don't have the chance to play against talented teams to even get to that level, right? That's the real struggle for him. If you look at Latin America, if you look at ANZ, if you look at Southeast Asia and Taiwan, like the same teams are winning over and over. And so sometimes what will happen is that team will break up and you'll get two teams formed out of that. But those same players are the players that typically win the #1 spot, right? Like, that's what happens. Please Buff Arthas disbanded, and the 3 players that stayed in the game formed a new team, and they won. Like, it's just, that's what happens, right? So there's, like, the player pool is small, and they have no one to really compete with to get better.
So they stagnate,
and then they come to an international, and they get stomped, which is not fun for anybody. Like, mid-season brawl, we're going to see the minor regions, you know, they might put up a fight against some teams, but for the most part, they're going to get stomped. Can we try to come up with a system to keep that from happening?
So I think what he proposed is the best thing, but if we're going to see it, it's not going to happen until next year after BlizzCon. Right. So
I would agree.
Hopefully, I hope they take note of this. This is the second Reddit post he's made. It gains a lot of traction on there, and I'm hoping they're paying attention.
So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about EU, NA, and Korea. So EU has hardly made any player moves at all, where we had NA basically roster apocalypse. Korea hasn't really made any player moves either. I think
as far as I know, yeah.
They might have made one change, but it's a little harder to get Korean news out. You know, and at the same time, we saw 2 EU teams jump into HGC Premier League out of Open Division. Like, what does that say for each of the regions, right? Does that say EU and Korea are okay with where they are, and they think they're, you know, they don't need to make any big changes, and NA is like, you know what? We're just going to blow this stuff up. like what? I feel like it's the ultimate hold my beer moment, right? EU's like, yeah, all we're gonna do is we're gonna disband this team that got kicked out, and NA is like, hold my beer. Like, just blow it all up, right? Like, what? What is happening?
So here's my takeaway. Based on Crucible results, EU is easily the deepest region, including Korea. Yep. I mean, like, Korea top end, probably the best, but EU is the deepest region as far as player pool, quality teams in the open division competing. I mean, BGenius and Synergy qualified for the HGC to begin with, and now we're knocked out by teams that were better than them. Says a lot. In both Crucibles, as far as NA and Korea went down, from what I saw, it came down to, like, these teams could hold their, and they mentioned this, they hold their own in the early game.
Right.
And then it came down to late game decision making and shot calling, which quite wasn't there to what these HGC teams have.
Right.
And a lost team fight here or a small mistake there ended up just costing them an entire game that they were competitive up until that point. Like, Cluster Unbalanced was really competitive.
Yeah.
Raven for a while, and they were winning a lot of their early game, and then just Raven would come back and win the late game. It was just their macro game might not necessarily have been there.
Well, and that was an interesting point, right? Because that's what all of the Korean games went that way. All of the Korean Crucible games were the macro wasn't as strong on the Open Division team as it was on the Premier League team, right? And that, how much does that say of just about how much scrimming the Open Division teams were really getting against teams or even like coaching about this is how your macro should work versus like their micro, like in the team fights, their micro was just as good. It was the macro where they lost almost every time.
It's they mentioned it in an article they just released on the Hero site that the Open Division teams don't really get to scrim against the top tier HGC teams, so they have that going against them. They have less resources to pull from as Open Division teams, less practice, less experience. So it's very difficult for them to break in, which is just exacerbates the point that EU is so deep that their Open Division teams. They mentioned it, I believe. Actually, Bad Benny did an interview with Heroes Power Hour, and I think he mentioned it that these teams they scrim with the HGC team, so they get to see them. They're a little more up to snuff on what the top tier teams are thinking.
Well, and they're tighter too, right? Like if you look at the players on the top 4 Open Division teams in EU, they were all ex-pro, or they all had ex-pros on the team, right? So they had connections to say, hey, we want to scrim you guys. Can we hook up a scrim? Where if you look at NA, I don't know enough about Korea to comment on Korea, but if you look at NA, like even in Death and Ported Support, those were like amateurs trying to break into the scene, which is what Open Division was for.
It's supposed to be, right?
But they didn't have the connection to say, hey, Udall, can we scrim you guys? Or, like that wasn't there. And I almost want to see Blizzard try to like make some of that connection happen and say, you know what, we know you guys need the scrims. We know you want to get better. We know you guys want to put your best foot forward. Maybe, after the first couple weeks of Open Division where you have a clear front runner like Imported Support was, or even in Death was, say, hey, you guys hook up? Can you guys like talk, maybe scrim a little bit, help these guys out? Clearly they're up and comers. We want to put on like the best show we can for our HGC viewers, right? So
agreed. I think, no doubt about it in my mind though, I think all the Open Division teams learned something from this.
Yeah.
And I think this next Crucible, it's going to be a lot more competitive. I think the teams are going to be better. I think that I don't want to say that they're going to get more scrims in against pro teams, but I think they might be able to. And again, based on how the free agency breaks down and shuffles down, we might have some former Phase 1 HGC pros playing in the Open Division in Phase 2.
Right.
Which will go a long way towards making that more competitive. As far as like, now Korea's not foreign to roster apocalypse. Before this season, we did see MVP Black and Miracle swapping players. They do have people shuffling around all the time. I don't have a why as to NA felt the need to blow up like it did.
Right.
It's mind-boggling, really. I guess. Well, let's start with B Genius, right? So, B Genius blew up because, in my opinion, and this is just speculation, I think because CAF and K1 had an opportunity to go to GFE.
You mean
after.
you said B Genius, B Step.
Sorry.
It's all right, man.
B-Step.
It's all right, man.
We'll start there.
Right.
The reason why CAF and K1 had an opportunity to go to GFE, and it's an org. B-Step wasn't an org. It was just a team kind of thrown together with a name called B-Step. It was an established org. There was a solid team. So that's a really tempting offer.
Right.
So and money talks in that respect.
Right.
They didn't really get the results that they wanted as B-Step. It seems like a solid fit. CAF's going to be, play the Warrior. They needed a Warrior with Trollin, and there were probably a package deal, which is why Trollin's gone, which is sad, but these things happen.
Right.
It happens in traditional sports too, I guess. Probably much to a lesser degree, but and then that kind of started a domino effect from there, right? So
yeah.
So now iDream needed a home, so he went to Naventic. APM, if his team was gone, he retired. If CAF and K1 are gone, he said he wanted to retire.
Right.
So Max kind of left out in the cold, so that opens up the door. it was a domino effect, I guess, in that respect, is because a big name team, GFE, kicked 2 players, and in EU and Korea, you don't see a big name team
kicking 2 players.
Kicking 2 players and,
right.
and opening the door for this craziness to happen.
Well, so let's jump into GFE's new lineup, right? And how that works, right? Akaface is a solid support. I think they're in a good place. King Caffeine was a solid warrior back in the C9 days. I don't know how much of it is the people around him versus just his playstyle changing a little bit. But he struggled in B-Step a little bit. Udall and Fan, I'm huge fans of. Yeah, we'll leave that as it is. We'll ignore that. But I feel like Udall is actually... So I'm concerned with Udall playing the melee flex and Fan staying on the range flex. I feel like, I don't know, maybe they'll go back and forth because, like, in some cases, Fan was better. Like, Fan on Zeratul was a scary, scary thing. And Udall is not as scary. So I guess as long as you're going to flex Fan onto the Zeratul if they go Zeratul, or even Valera, we're okay there. But K1 Pro on a ranged, like, totally made sense. Like, the way B-Step was lining up, like, threw me for a loop. And I blame that all on iDream. And I hate to make iDream my scapegoat, but I think iDream was the weakest player on B-Step. I think B-Step would have been fine had they just swapped iDream for someone else. Maybe not, but I think APM was actually a great support. I think McIntyre is a great ranged flex player. So I feel like all of their struggles stemmed from iDream, but, you know, it's we don't know, right?
Yeah, it's the cookie unfortunately didn't crumble that way. I'm not gonna lie, I'm disappointed that the team dissolved. I prefer stability in my own backyard league. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm gonna blame all the NA roster apocalypse on GFE because they opened up 2 holes that they really probably only needed to open up 1, and it's just.
And you know the real kicker is, had they not kicked Fury, they wouldn't even have had to open that hole.
It all comes back to Fury,
right?
Man.
It all comes back to Fury. Dude, I was like, and I remember when I first read that news, I was like, oh, all right. Like, I read GFE's point of view. I'm like, all right, cool. Makes sense if Fury's gone. And then I started digging into it a little, and I started watching Fury on Tempo, and I'm like, dude, this, like, what? Like, this dude is great on Warrior. Like, holy crap. This is my new, because at the time, King Caffeine wasn't playing, really. I was like, this is my new NA Warrior to follow. Like, Jesus, he's really good. And then, and then GFE went into the weird, we're 4 flexes in a support, and I'm like, okay, I guess that could work. But yeah, it all comes back to kicking Fury off the team, man. That's where it comes from. So
that's how NA roster apocalypse happened,
right?
We've gotten to the bottom of it. We discovered
the
the
cause
truth.
Is GFE kicking Fury from the team is still sending ripple effects through the NA roster system. But then Naventic had huge news. First, I disagree with them picking up iDream, but McIntyre wouldn't have fit because McIntyre was already on Naventic, and that I get why they didn't pick up McIntyre, right? But Kenma's now a coach, and Big E is going to support, which is cool. Like, all right, Big E is mechanical. I agree. Like, there was a lot of Twitter hate on him going to support. I actually agree with that change. I think if he's mechanical, having another skilled mechanical support in NA is a good thing because NA's support pool is, like, non-existent right now, right?
Their support and tank pool.
Right.
It's kind of depressing.
Right. And iDream coming in as flex and Zuna moving over to range second warrior, I think you fixed half the problem. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Kenma as a coach. But I still think Kenma Zuna were the core of the problem with Naventic. Now, making Kenma a coach, and maybe... All right, so I play games with a pair of twins that just absolutely cannot play games together. Like, they play games together, but it's like a horrible experience for everybody because they're constantly bickering, right? So yeah. I wonder if maybe Kenma being a coach and Zuna being a player and them not, like, so tightly interacting might help the team as a whole. I think it's an interesting decision. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think it's a bad decision. I just don't know if it's enough to fix the Kenma Zuna issue that Naventic has.
So, I have no issue with Biggie going to support either. Listen, Biggie's was a range carry god. He's going to be a great support. Just give him some time to work out the kinks. No doubt about it in my mind. I don't get the the hate on Twitter either in that regard.
Right.
Zuna going back to basically kind of like his natural role. It's going to be good for the team, in my opinion. The biggest question is, so iDream's coming over now, and his like some of the like I took a sneak at his Master League profile, and like some of the characters that he plays kind of overlaps with like he played a lot of Zeratul for B Step. He played a lot of Greymane for B Step, and I'm like, well, Thompson plays Greymane and Zuna plays Zeratul, so
What's iDream on? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he also has a massive hero pool, so we'll see how that goes.
So I just want to touch on that because I think part of iDream playing those characters, if you look back at B Step, when they were struggling like really badly, they had just picked up iDream and trying to figure out where iDream and K1 Pro fit back together again was part of their struggles because iDream wants to be a ranged carry, but K1 Pro is a better ranged carry, and I think that's where you ended up with like some internal strife amongst the team, which is where you saw kind of that weird, like the dynamic was off with them. And I think moving iDream here could work because Tomster and Zuna are clearly, they will play the melee assassin role. And I think iDream just wants to play ranged carry, honestly. I think that's where he fits better than other places.
Agreed. So I think we're going to see that this is going to be the puzzle pieces are going to fit better than people expect initially, I think. And Kenma, I believe, I'm not 100% sure. I believe he coached a Challenger Series team in League or Zuna's old League team. So he does. It's not that he doesn't have experience with it. There is experience there. And then we danced off GFE. I just wanted to come back to it. On paper, that roster looks stacked.
Right.
No doubt. All right. So K1 was K1 back in the Jaina days, Calf back in the C9 days. They were gods at those roles, right?
Right.
So if they can recapture that glory, that's huge for the NA scene.
For sure.
I think the biggest thing is Calf's got to get a bigger hero pool. Like, dude can play Muradin and Leoric like nobody's business, right? But he's got to. There's more to it than that nowadays. There's other tanks in the meta now, so we'll see what happens. Udall, like you said, on Melee, Fan had been playing the Melee flex for the first half of this. It's weird that they're switching.
Yeah. But maybe they won't. Maybe that's just what we're seeing on Master League, right? And like the quote unquote true positions are. But they're gonna be at midseason brawl. Wait.
No.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see in the next phase. Unfortunately,
phase 2,
teammate.
Right. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. No, I got that confused. So we'll see next phase, right? But the cool thing is that gives them that much longer to get ready, right? And I think the catch is we're not going to hear anything out of scrims about, oh, yeah, well, Udall's back on where he belongs. So Udall's on the Falstad. And Udall, like, I agree with you on paper, this roster is stacked. On paper, this roster makes me think GFE can now do the things that I wanted GFE to do in phase 1, right? But whether or not they make those happen, that's going to be the talent. Like, are they all going to mesh? Can Udall, Fan, and K1 Pro get along? Like, that's going to be the key. If those 3 players can get along, man, like, forget it. It's over, right? If they can sync up, you're going to, like throw Fan on Li Ming, right? Reset after reset after reset. Like, it's going to get real, and that team can do what they used to do back when Fury was on the team. And it was like, when it was Fan, and like, I remember when Crowan joined the team, and I was like, so you now have the number 1 and number 2, basically assassin, period. Because it's either Fan, Udall, or Crowan. The 3 of them are all like number 1, number 2 on the assassin. So number 1, number 2 Li Ming was Fan and Crowan. Number 1, number 2 Falstad was Fan and Udall. Number 1, number 2 Zeratul was Fan and Udall. Like, you had the main assassins, the number 1 and number 2 NA players for those were on GFE at the time, right? And then just like the weird 4 flex and the support thing happened, and like it just didn't mesh the way it was supposed to. So I'm hoping it meshes that way. I'm hoping good things come for both of these teams. I want to see GFE do better in phase 2. I want to see Naventic not be in the bottom. I started following Naventic as soon as they formed Bob Ross fan club.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see them play like that.
And they made that first tournament appearance and took down Cloud9 in eSports Arena, man. That was
like it was nothing. They were just like, yeah, we did that. What up?
welcome to the scene, right?
Right?
Yes.
Like that's what I want
my-
to see. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I don't know where it's gonna go yet.
So they also mentioned in that lineup change on their site in the article that Udall is going to be the sole shot caller. Fan will be doing the drafts. There were at points in the first phase where they seemed kind of like, we want to go. There was like a tug of war going on in comms or something where they were just there was hesitation in the decision making. So we'll see if that can clean that up too. It's gonna. I agree with you, man. It's gonna. I got it written down here. It's gonna come to how the personalities mesh.
Yeah.
If they can expand their hero pools a little bit, as far as most specifically CAF, but and just if the personalities can mesh, and if they can get all systems go, man, we're gonna have some fireworks. I'm excited. At least
it should be good.
I hope so.
Should be good. All right. You have anything you want to add?
That's
or you
it.
Want to, cool. All right. So thank you everyone for listening to our inaugural episode of Trollin HGC, a weekly podcast about Heroes of the Storm eSports, a member of the Trolls.gg podcast network. We stream live on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/TrollsGG, every week on Wednesdays, following the Nexus Trolls around 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. You can follow me on Twitter at LiQuidGG, LiQiuDGG, just like it says below, or on Twitch where I do cast amateur Heroes of the Storm tournaments as well as playing from time to time. Bahgz, where can people follow you at?
They can follow me on Twitter where I retweet a ton of esports crap. It's at _up_Bahgz. Anytime I read something, Overwatch, Hearthstone, anything related, I retweet it on my page. So if you give me a follow, you'll be pretty up to date with the esport news. You can also watch me stream irregularly at twitch.tv/Bahgz, where occasionally I stream my gameplay, or I bust out crazy ideas for stream shows that I don't follow through on. That's about it, though.
I do have to say that following you on Twitter has kept me up to date with Overwatch news. I will absolutely believe that, because every once in a while I'm like, oh, cool, here's something else that's cool about Overwatch that's going on right now because I follow you on Twitter. So, yes, absolutely. If you have any inkling of liking Blizzard esports, follow Bahgz. He retweets a lot of good stuff. Also, thank you to all of the Patreon supporters for the Trolls.gg network. If you like the show and you're looking for a way to support us, do so at patreon.com/TrollsGG. You can subscribe to our show, not tonight, but starting tomorrow sometime, because you have to have the first show up before you will show up on all the feeds. But we will be on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and wherever else you happen to find your podcasts online. You can visit our website at www.trolls.gg to watch this and past shows, along with past video streams, which can be found on our YouTube channel. For announcements about the show and general Heroes of the Storm esports news, follow us on Twitter at TrollinHGC. I retweet a lot of stuff. I also tweet a lot of stuff. So for both my account and the Trollin HGC account, so definitely check it out. In Heroes of the Storm, if you want to hang out with us in game, just do /join TrollsGG. Most of us are in there. I'm sure Bahgz is going to join that channel tonight after he finishes up. So hang out with us there. Pick up a game or two. Just hit us up there. Finally, if you need to get in touch with us, hit us up on Twitter at TrollinHGC or email us trollin@trolls.gg. Thank you, everybody, for a great first show. Have a wonderful evening.
Peace out.